Hi everyone, welcome back. For today's mani, we're going to be dipping into dip powders from Bling Galleria. We're going to get back to basics here. We're going to dive into the gel method, and I'm going to share some tips and tricks along the way. Now, the first thing what I like to do when I am playing with the gel method is I like to put my dip powders into a cupcake liner just to give me more room when I am dipping directly into those powders. We're also going to be using the precision tool from Bling Galleria when we get to a dip powder called Exposed. So the first thing I like to do is a very thin layer of gel on the nail, and I start right below the cuticle line, and then I will work that product all the way up. And I like to take my time to make sure that my application is even and very thin layers. Now I will say it is easy to get a thin layer with the Bling Galleria gels because the viscosity is a little bit thinner, so it really helps with that application process. Now, when I'm dipping into that cupcake liner, I have more room, so I'm not worried about accidentally bumping that nail onto that jar, because sometimes when you're dipping into the jars, especially when they're 0.25 ounces, it's kind of hard depending on the length of the nail to not bump that jar. So a cupcake liner is definitely a way to help avoid bumping that nail. If you are making press-ons as well, the cupcake liner is a great option like we're doing here. Otherwise, if you are doing this directly on your nail, you could do the pour over method, or you could gently dip into the cupcake liner as well. I've done it both ways with press-ons, the gel method, and not making press-ons and still doing the gel method. And both pour over method and dipping in the cupcake liner work out fantastically. It's really up to your preference. And then right here, you can see here that already that the coverage is amazing and that those layers are very thin. So we are going to cure in between each layer for 30 seconds. Now, depending on your lamp, you may need to cure a little bit more, but I can get away with 30 seconds no matter what color I'm using with the gel method with my lamps. If you are looking for suggestions for nail lamps, I do have a few listed in that description box below. So now what we're doing is we're going in with another layer of gel over that dip powder that's already cured, and I'm making sure that the nail is completely covered and that we have an even coverage of that gel. And again, a very thin application. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and wipe off that brush with a paper towel anytime I'm dipping that second dip, or anytime I'm applying gel over a nail that already has powder over it, just to make sure that I'm not contaminating my gels. I treat my gels the same way I would with dip liquids. So you can see here that color payoff is just really shining through with that second dip. And then we're going to continue doing the same thing to the other nails. I will say that I really do love this gel. The brush is definitely key. So if you can see here, the brush just fans out perfectly, giving you a really awesome application. And I really like gels that have a clear bristle brush versus like the black brush. There's something about the clear. It just helps glide over the nail. It's just a very, to me, a better experience with application with a clear bristle. But I mean, to each their own. If you've never noticed the difference, you probably wouldn't even think twice versus the bristle color. But I definitely can tell the difference between a clear bristle like we're using here versus black bristles. I don't know. It's just a preference of mine. If you know, you know. But now we're going to finish up the second dip here. This color is a great color because not only is it the perfect nude color, but it also has a very slight shimmer to it. Then before we move on to that other powder, I am just now pouring this powder back into the jar. Now, Bling Galleria, the jars are completely full, so I always go ahead and tap that jar down before I go ahead and pour the rest in there, and then you are good to go. She fills these jars up all the way to the top, which is amazing. So now we're getting into Exposed. Exposed is a really beautiful color, and it has a little bit of these gold flakes in them, and it's really pretty. And I'm going to show you some ways to help make sure that your application is laying super flat. So again, same, you want to do very thin coats of that gel, and then check out the coverage here. So now you can see we have some of those flakes sticking up. So what I'm going to do now before we cure, I'm going to spend quite a bit of time here just making sure everything is laying as flat as it can be. And then I'm also going to take the precision tool and just gently clean up underneath that nail here in the sidewalls to make sure that any of those glitter flake pieces are completely moved away. And then I'm also going to go back in again and just gently press everything down. And then we're going to move on to the other nail. I just find that taking time to press everything down when it comes to if you're working with foils or glitters, that it just works a lot better with the gel method, because then you're going to help reduce your filing and buffing. Now, if you are wanting to pick up more of those foils, you can just gently shimmy that cupcake liner, and then more foils or glitters, whatever you're working with, will rise to the top. I really like this powder. I think it's really beautiful. It has almost like this champagne base to it with the most beautiful sparkle. And then there's something about this gold. It's just so beautiful. It's like these irregular shapes. So you're going to get a really awesome effect when you're playing with this dip powder, just because of how those pieces are just irregular cut. It looks really pretty. All right, so now I'm just going to go ahead and press everything down here. And then once everything is completely how I want it, we'll go ahead and cure. So if you have any of those foil pieces sticking up, and then you go ahead and cure, those foil pieces are naturally going to be cured now, so they are going to stick up. So just keep that in mind. Once you cure, that is how everything is going to lay. You can remove that bulk by going ahead to file and buff. So now we're going to go in with a second layer here, and keep in mind, I am wiping that brush off any time I go over a powder. I am just doing that off camera just to preserve my dip liquids and my gels. So what will happen over time with your gels is that if you do not wipe up that brush, you are going to get, even though it's cured, you are going to get a little bit of contamination, and then your gels will become stringy, they'll become thick, they will not be as clear, so you'll have like a cloudiness to your nails instead of like this clear finish. You'll have like a haziness over it. So those are signs that your gel liquids are contaminated. Same thing with your dip liquids. Your dip liquids will either be completely goopy, stringy, cloudy. So just always treat your liquids the best way you can. I know we're always in a hurry to and trying to take shortcuts, but I cannot stress enough, always wiping off your brush when you're going over a second layer of powder or a third layer is key to just keep your liquids lasting long and just making sure that they stay the same formula and crystal clear. So we're going to go ahead now and cure for 30 seconds. I love this combination. It's very simple. Filing and buffing. This is how I file and buff all my gel method manis. So right now I am just making sure I'm getting that file directly underneath that press on, just to clean up any powder or gel that may be up there that already cured. And then once I do that, I will go ahead against the sidewalls here and just reshape it on that cuticle line and reshape ever so slightly. So that's all I do for my filing. I do not buff on top or anything like that, because we did those very thin, even layers, and then everything was laying super flat. Even with this nail, I'm going to do the exact same thing. Just go directly under that nail, clean it up, and then gently reshape on those sidewalls there and the free edge and that cuticle line, and that is it. So thin layers, making sure you press everything down, is going to really help reduce your filing and buffing, which filing and buffing to me is like the worst part of a mani in my opinion. Some people love it. I do not. So any way I can have a really smooth application without buffing directly on top is something I really love. That's another reason why I like to do the gel method, because with smooth, even applications, it really helps cut down your filing. So what I did is I applied a layer of gel base to all the nails I cured for 30 seconds. Then to seal in this mani, we're going to go ahead and do a layer of the Bling Galleria top coat. And I'm going to do that on the rest of the nails and cure for a full 60 seconds. This top coat is going to give you a really awesome finish and a really awesome shine on these beautiful palette cleansing nails here. So here's the finished mani. I love it so much. I really love like the neutral tones we're pulling through, but yet we still added a pop of sparkle here with that really fun exposed. It's just like the perfect champagne-y base, and then we have this like gold pieces shining through. It kind of looks like shattered glass. Now you could add more of those gold flakes on that nail if you really wanted to add even more dimension to this nail, but I really liked how organically those foil pieces laid, and I just really love this combination together. It's kind of like best of both worlds. It's like a palette cleansing mani, but yet you still have that pop of bling. Stay tuned, we will be doing another Bling Galleria mani with some chunkier glitter, and I will show you how to encapsulate those with the gel method so you can buff directly on top of that. But these are just some tips and tricks when it comes to the gel method to help with a really smooth, clean application. It did take me a little bit to master this and for it to just like look how it is now. Practice makes perfect, but at the end of the day, I really love this method, and I really like the consistency of these gels, and these powders are simply buttery soft. So the combination of these powders and gels definitely go well together. All right, so everything that we did use in today's video can be found in that description box below. I hope you enjoyed these helpful tips and this beautiful mani, and I'll see you all in the next one.